Lauren with the Potomac Bead Company, and I am going to be showing to you today the most simple stitch with our newest bead, the StormDuo. So in this video, we are going to be working with the StormDuo, showing it used as peyote stitch. So this is just peyote stitch with a 2-hole bead. So this is the StormDuo. I'm going to show you how to add the clasp onto that peyote stitch, how to decorate the sides, how we're going from 1-hole to 2-hole, and then how we're actually going to burn off the thread and end the project. For this, if you need any of the materials like the StormDuos and the 15-0s, you can go below the video to the description that says when the video was created, and there it has a little down arrow that says show more. Click on that and it'll give you links to buy the StormDuos from us if you want, or to gather your supplies from PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu. To get started, I would like you to have 5 feet of beading thread on a size 10 needle. I'm using Wildfire .006 in the gray color, and have your StormDuos out and some 15-0 seed beads. So to begin our StormDuo pattern here, what I want to do is I want to establish a pattern, but really this is just 2-hole peyote. So I have a number of other videos on 2-hole peyote and doing it with 2-hole beads. To get started, I want you to take a bead that is not going to be included in your project. This is an 11-0 seed bead. You're going to drop that to the bottom of your thread. Again, you are going to have about 5 feet of thread. I just have about 20 inches so that way I can get on screen and on camera faster for you. You have the thread going through this stop bead or extra bead 2 times, and that's going to keep it from showing at the end. I suggest leaving a good about 10 inches or so. That way you don't have to add more thread to the end when you go in and attach your clasp. To get started, we are going to begin with a pattern of a StormDuo and then 2 seed beads. So we're going to put on our StormDuos. The StormDuos, when you're working with them, the most important thing is to realize that there are 2 ways the StormDuo can sit. It can sit with the tail facing to the right there, or it can sit with the tail facing to the left. So you can see they're almost touching one another. When you put them together, they almost line up in a little V there. We're going to make sure that all of our StormDuos, as we're working with them, are facing the same direction. We're going to be doing the peyote stitch that is 4 wide. So to start out, just till you get comfortable picking up those StormDuos in the correct direction, we're going to start out by placing them ahead of time in the correct direction. If by any chance you pick up one in the wrong direction, you can simply grab it by the opposite hole, and that'll solve that issue. All right, so now that I've got my StormDuos facing the correct way, I'm going to add my StormDuo, 2 15s, then my next StormDuo, make sure it's facing the same way, 2 15s, next StormDuo, 2 15s, and then again that StormDuo is facing with the tail to the left and the rest were to the right, so I'm just going to grab at the top, which changes it to the opposite side. Let that all drop down next to the stop bead, and you can see those StormDuos are all going in the same direction. On the outer edge of the StormDuos, we are going to add 4 15s, and then we're going to step up. We're going to step up from the bottom hole to the top hole of the StormDuo and give a nice tight pull. From here, we're going to add our next row of StormDuos. So the next row of StormDuos, we're going to add the white Lila gold luster, same direction. So we're going to be thinking of it now that we want them to kind of sway the same way. So this time that little tail is going to face to the left. Excuse me. StormDuo, new one goes on. Go through the second hole of the next StormDuo in line from the previous row. Pick up the next one. Again, you want that tail facing to the left like it is. Go on to the next StormDuo. And these are just going to sit perfectly in there. They almost look like a wave. We've got 2 more to place. And you can see that the tail is kind of facing down there, and the tails are facing up. So I'm going to grab this hole to the right. and that's going to switch it for me. Now to add our last bead in our 2-hole peyote, I'm going to add my last StormDuo onto my needle here and push it against my design. Add 4 of your 15s, which are going to decorate as you step up yet again. So I'm going to step up again, going from the bottom hole to the top hole. You can see a lot of extra thread here. I'm going to give it a nice tight pull, and I want you to make sure you don't see any extra thread in your project there. Initially, the thread is going to look almost like it's storming or swimming upward, and as you continue to add the rows, it's going to have that nice texture and that nice feel, but they're all going to be lined up. I'm going to grab another row of my brown, and then we'll go in and grab our white Lila, or I'm sorry, our white teal luster. So I do not like sewing away from me. That's just me. I like, or sewing towards me. I like sewing away from me. So I'm going to take my peyote stitch and I'm going to flip it. So I'm always going to be sewing away from me, or in my case, I'm always sewing kind of from the right to the left. I don't feel comfortable when I'm working and sewing peyote, and a lot of you are the same. I don't feel comfortable because I'm not left-handed, so I don't feel comfortable going from that left to right. So a lot of times as you're working and doing peyote stitch, you're going to flip the project in your hand, so you're always sewing from the right to the left. I'm going to pick up again my next row here. You can see the tail there is facing down. So when I pick them up, I'm going to make sure that as I pick them up and put them on, that my tail is facing in the same direction. So you can see right here it's facing up. I don't want it to face up, so I want it to face down. I can simply grab the top hole instead, and that's going to flip it so that it's facing down. Again, facing up, so I want to switch it. Get one more where it's facing up, that tail. So there you can see it's facing up, just like the rest. I'm going to add it in. And then I have my 4 beads on to get from that bottom row to step up to the top row. Again, I'm not comfortable sewing towards me or from the left, so I flip it. I'm going to go away from me, sewing from the right side. Here again, I've got my StormDuos on. This time the tail is going to go towards the top. So I want that tail towards the top, making sure that all of these StormDuos are always going in the same direction. If you decide to put them in a different direction and alternate, it's going to give you a completely different look, fun to play around with as well. I'm just going straight down along here, adding in my 4 beads at a time, and I'm just creating a pattern of opposite basically that I am doing just lighter than darker, then lighter than darker colors, working in with the jet bronze, the white teal luster, the white Lila gold luster, and the crystal Capri gold. Again, I'll flip it in my hand and then keep going to create length and to increase the design. You're going to notice as you're doing the peyote, when you're doing the even count, that you're going to have the beads going almost on every opposite corner here, adding those 4 beads on the outer edge. If you do want to do an odd count peyote, say 3 beads, you're going to have seed beads that are arching from one color of the StormDuo to another color on each end. So it can be done basically with an even or an odd count. That's up to you, and that's just going to affect the length and the size of the actual peyote stitch. So it is now time to finish up our peyote stitch, and I went ahead and added the clasp to the first side so that way you would see an idea of how it is done. And again, we had those 2 seed beads that were coming out in between. So to end the piece, I'm on this Capri gold here. I'm going to, instead of adding my next row of StormDuos, pick up 2 15s and go through the next StormDuo. And this is just like that starter piece, adding in 2 and going through the next duo without getting a knot in your thread. Once you're going through also and you're coming out the end, we're going to be coming out almost like a blank empty space. And we have that outer edge of this Capri StormDuo that has kind of that funky look to it. So that outer edge of the Capri, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of my 15s. And we're simply going to turn around then and come right back through the StormDuo. What that's going to do is just put that 15 on the outer edge. We're going to come back and kind of reinforce that, so don't worry about that too much. I have my thread coming back through the StormDuo, coming back through one of my 15s. When you already have one side of your clasp on, you want to make sure that you put the other clasp on at the same direction and that you don't want your bracelet to have to flip in the middle. So I'm going to put my first loop here on, coming from the front or back towards the front, and I'm going to sew through another 15, storm 15, coming out. It's just like sewing on a button, going through the loop, coming out the top, adding, and then into the next grouping. So I'm coming out between those groupings of 2 every time. Into the next loop. As I go out now, I'm going to go out the last 15 and out the last StormDuo. Give a nice tight pull. I can also at this point let go of my clasp and open it up. I'm doing that push clasp here. Open up that push clasp. I'm going to come down the side, down those 4 15s, through the whole last row of my StormDuos. So usually I can do it about 2 at a time. And this is the same case for any time you want to end a 2-hold peyote project. You can do it much in this fashion because you're going to have a row of seed beads that's going to take the place of the next row of whatever super duo or rula that you'd be adding in. As I come out the last StormDuo in that Capri color, I'm going to go from the bottom hole that's closest to the start side to this outer hole, going through that 15 that we added on the edge, going through my StormDuo. And as I go through the StormDuo, I'm also going to go through the 15 that sits right there on the edge. And if it's getting a little tight, you can switch to a size 12 needle. Kind of wiggle the thread through. And as I wiggle the thread through there, I'm going to go up through the clasp, down, through the next 15. So I'm just reinforcing, getting a second strand in there. Through the 15s. If I need to, I'll take the needle to the back and not through the clasp yet. So that way I'm going from the back to the front. I just like to be consistent in the way that I'm threading and stringing. Makes for a much nicer, neater end. If you want, you could also use wire guards on this, and that would help end it. So we're just reinforcing. And then the last thing we're going to do is take the thread back a little bit into the project and sew off the end. Burning off the thread and finishing up. So here we're at the end. We're going to go through the last of the 15, over to the side of the StormDuo, down through the 15s on the side. And like I said, it might be getting a little tight. It's not too bad for me. But depending on your 15, and if it's a color lined or something, it might be a little tight. I'm going to go into the space between the next 2 StormDuo rows, go underneath the bridge thread or the thread that connects those 2 beads, make a loop, and sew through the loop. I'm going to sew through the loop once, pull it a little smaller, sew through the loop twice, and then give a nice tight yank. And it's going to go right between those beads. I'm going to take it to the back because I have a front and a back that has been established by that clasp. So I bring that towards the back, and you can see the little knot on the other side here. I'm going to take my thread and needle, burn down that thread towards the back, and then take my burner and burn down the additional little gray thread. Nice and flush with the project, making sure that I'm not burning through any of my threads that lay on my project. And then you have the StormDuo Peyote bracelet complete. You can see it's really fun texture. It has a really fun look to it that is going to add to a lot of designs. I love some of the things that I see coming out from a number of the different designers that are working with it. And again, like I said, I love to just do peyote at first, see how they work up, see how they play, and work with them as we create. As always, if you need the materials, you can go back to the beginning of the video. And at the beginning of the video, it will give you the links to the actual products underneath the video and just kind of what you learned. So hopefully you guys did a great job learning the peyote stitch, how to decorate the sides and step up, as well as how to attach that clasp just like a button, as easy as a button. Again, if you want to, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. That'll give you regular updates to different beads like the StormDuo, different patterns and tutorials, and what's going on in the beading world. You can also stay connected with us on social media, and as always, shop from us online at PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu for everything from the StormDuos to the 15s to the wonderful Claspgarten clasp as well. Have fun creating, everybody, and thanks so much for watching the new StormDuo Peyote bracelet.